What is going on, guys? We are back for another day of NHL. I'm really excited once again. And it's also nice not to have a slate where we have Ovechkin and Nathan McKinnon on the same slate. So I'm going to start by just kind of reviewing the odds here first. Kind of touch on some of my favorite plays from each team. I actually probably go position by position. We'll talk a little bit of value. A lot of the value has stayed pretty consistently the same. DK hasn't really adjusted the prices a ton, which has been really nice. And if you have any questions throughout this time, feel free to put them in the chat. Again, for all of you those that are at FSI, I could love the support. Give this video a like. It's greatly appreciated. So our first game is the Flyers and the Canadiens. The Flyers are a slight favorite here, minus 135 with an over-under of only 5. And this is why even in Showdown, I really like both goalies here, just because I do think, which will likely be Carey Price and Carter Hart. We'll find out here in 10 minutes. But the top options for both teams, other than Shea Weber, who's played not that great the last 2 games, but Shea Weber has been the most consistent player in that series. The pay-up options are really tough to pay for, especially in Classic for the Flyers and the Canadiens. I think if you nail a correlated goal with Couturier and Giroux, that's awesome, but the floors aren't there. So I do think that they will not provide a lot of value to you in the Classic slate. Now, if we look at their lineups from last game, just their line rushes, Suzuki has been playing on the top line with Tatar and Gallagher. But his price has jumped up enough that he's still pretty goal and assist dependent. The 2 or 3 shots on goal is not really worth his price tag at this point. Otherwise, Druin is pretty cheap, has been pretty inconsistent. But if you look at the longer term, someone like him is actually pretty good value. And even like someone like Jeff Petrie, he's been a lot worse now than he was during the regular season. In the regular season, he was a cash cow where he was logging 25, 26 minutes and having, 5 to 6 block shots plus shots on goal per game. I think Ben Chariot's really taken away from Jeff Petrie. So again, the Montreal side, I'm not really too excited about at all. So the Flyers side, we have Provorov as their best defenseman in terms of DFS. Other than that, it gets really shaky. I just they're just so tough to predict. That's why in Classic, I don't really like to go there. We have seen Lawton has been pretty consistent. Konechny can hit on the goals, but he has no floor. He doesn't shoot the puck that much. JVR is down on line 3. Avi Kubel is 3,400 on Showdown. He's on the 3rd line. He's pretty cheap. Raffle came back last game. He's on the 4th line. Niskanen's price is too expensive. Sanheim. So there's just not, I just pass on these 2 teams in Classic. Let's move on to the next game where we have the Dallas Stars and the Calgary Flames. That's where we're going to see a lot more value and fun. Even though the over-under is only 5 again, but that's the case for the next game too. And even the Blackhawks game is only 5.5. So as we get into playoff hockey here, the scoring typically goes down, defenses tighten up, things get are just not as loose and wild as we saw early on with Edmonton and Chicago. But my favorite value play of the slate last time with Calgary and Dallas was Tobias Reeder, who got bumped up to the 2nd line, I believe it was. Yes, 2nd line with Backlund, and he netted a goal. He was minimum 2K on Showdown, and I think he's still only 2.8K as a winger for Classic. So he's definitely a value if you see him up on that top line or on that 2nd line again. I do really like him there. Some other plays I like, obviously you can stack the 1st line with Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, and Elias Lindholm. Johnny Gaudreau I think he's getting a little bit more of a price bump. Yeah, 6,400. The problem with Johnny Gaudreau is he can sometimes, without a goal or assist, he doesn't have a ton of a floor either. You really want that good matchup where you're going to see Calgary score 2 to 3 goals, maybe even more to actually get there. Same with Monahan. Monahan really goal dependent and assist dependent, but he's only 5,300. So there's a lot of opportunity equity in his game. I mean, because he does, even last game against Dallas where it was 5-4, he put 5 shots on goal and had 2 assists and scored 20.5 DK and crushed his value at 5.7K. The defenseman for Calgary, we know we have Mark Giordano, who is 6,000 on Classic. Still just has one of the highest floors of any defenseman. Last 2 games, 6 block shots each game. And obviously he has assist equity in those games as well. Not really much goal equity. And it does, I think Gustafsson has still been taking the power play one time, which has reduced that value a little bit. On the Dallas side, though, we have Miro Heiskanen, who's been an absolute stud in the playoffs, just been playing a ton of ice time. He has the shot and the block shot floor. He is super aggressive offensively. We saw a 2-goal game against him in game 2 against Calgary. We've seen an assist from him in the other games. I mean, this guy is just smashing value, 5,400. If you want to pay down even from John Carlson, I love his price tag here at 5,400 for Miro Heiskanen. I could be pronouncing his last name wrong. So John Klingberg has gone off the last 3 games as well, where he was kind of just non-existent since the restart before that. But he had 3 assists last game, 5 shots on goal. The game before that, he had 6 shots on goal. And then the game before that, 2 assists and 2 shots on goal. So 5,000. So both those guys are just point per dollar, really good plays. And sometimes when these lower totals are times to actually target the better defensemen, because they're just going to be seeing, they're going to get the block shots and things like that. Doesn't mean that there's not volume going. It's just not getting through. Shea Weber, 5,800 is viable, but he is kind of tucked into a price range that I don't love right now with how he's playing compared to someone like John Carlson or the 2 Stars defensemen that I just mentioned. The skaters for the Stars, Tyler Seguin, 6,100, 16 DK last game, 2 assists, 4 shots on goal. I am excited to see the last 3 games. He's had 4 shots on goal in each of those games. That's a really good sign for someone like him who struggled since the restart, hasn't had a goal, has had really low shot totals. So that was really good to see that consistently coming back. And he has been paired up with Jamie Benn and Radulov on that first line, which has definitely seemed to create some more chemistry. Jamie Benn with 5 shots on goal and an assist in the last game, along with 2 block shots. And then Radulov is finally coming back to life. Last game, he had a goal and 7 shots on goal. So all the Stars seem super cheap relative to their performance lately. Obviously, I do not expect that we get a 10-goal game that we had last time, or 9. I think it was 5-4 or 4-6, 5-4, yeah. But I do think the value is certainly there for the Stars. Moving on to our last 2 games here, we have Washington and the Islanders. Ovechkin probably would be the most popular play on the entire slate. Maybe him or somebody like Patrick Kane, just because Kane's shot volume. But I think with no McKinnon and no really high expensive centers, I think you're going to see a ton of ownership on Ovechkin, which is definitely granted and worthy for him. So Ovechkin last game skated with, I believe it was Kuznetsov and Wilson. Kuznetsov always benefits from being on the same line as Ovechkin as anybody would. But Nicholas Backstrom is a game time decision, and that would likely bump Kuznetsov back down to line 2. And then you would see Backstrom either with Oshie or Backstrom with Wilson. So you'll want to check that. And Oshie has been really good in the playoffs too. He is a little bit more goal dependent as well. I know FSI, we did catch him on a nice slate where he was underpriced, and he had that 2-goal game in the first game against the Islanders. I don't really expect that to be a repeat performance anytime soon, but especially like when he's priced higher than Radulov and Benn, or priced just slightly lower than Gallagher or Goudreau or even Marchessault, I prefer all of them over TJ Oshie. John Carlson obviously made a late arrival to the bubble and getting off an injury. He's putting in just massive minutes, 27.5 minutes last game, 25 minutes the game before. We haven't seen the block shot and the shot on goal totals that we normally would see out of him, like 4 to 5 every game. But he is always going to be in line for that assist equity on, they always run one of the best power play units in the league. So I think John Carlson is an elite play in a slate, again, where we don't have a ton of pay up options that we're sorting through. Lars Eller came back, skated, I think, on the second line, replacing where Backstrom or Kuznetsov would have been. If Backstrom comes back, that bumps Eller down. He loses even more value at that spot. One player I did forget to mention that I do like quite a bit is Joe Pavelski, coming off a hat trick against Calgary. 4,200 is a really nice value at center. Let's move on to the last game. We have Chicago and Vegas. Only 5.5 total. Vegas is cranking on these totals a little bit. At center position, we do have William Karlsson, who in the past has been a really low floor player, but he's actually created a lot of shots on goal during the playoffs and has been a decent option. And he's been paired usually with Riley Smith and Jonathan Marchessault. Going down from Karlsson, we have Jonathan Toews. Again, a low floor player, as we see here. The last 4 games, 5.6, 2.8, 6.5, 4.3. So not somebody that I'm really looking to target unless I'm stacking Chicago. But there is another center that I do love for Chicago, and that's Kirby Dach. Just consistently, 3,800. I mean, the guy's playing tons of minutes, 6.3, 7.3, 10 points. And the minutes are like close to 20 every time. Now, they did make a line change last game where he was not skating with Patrick Kane anymore, but still getting some power play time. So still, at 3,800, it's really tough to go wrong there. I think you could go up to someone like Pavelski instead of him, but I do like Kirby Dach quite a bit. Chandler Stevenson at the center position, 3,300, has replaced Paul Stastny when he has been out. But Paul Stastny, I think, is going to be a game time decision today. And if he is out, Chandler Stevenson would likely center the Patches and Stone line. But Stastny have been decent in the playoffs, 4,500, pretty goal dependent, but not somebody I'd look to target. At the winger position, we have Patches at 7,400, coming off an injury and getting right back into things. 5 shots on goal in the first game he was back. In the last game. He just hasn't had a goal or assist yet, but 7,400 is too close of a price tag to Ovechkin for me, and I don't really like pairing him with like Chandler Stevenson. Mark Stone is a little bit more appealing as a one-off just because he seems to do better on the power play. I love Marchessault at 6,600. The last 4 games, shots on goal are 5, 4, 3, and 6. And then he has netted some assists. So I'm just waiting for the goal, like the positive regression in scoring a goal that we haven't really seen. And then we go down here a little bit further. Riley Smith is definitely just correlation viable, not really a lot of floor at 5,600. It's a pretty tough price tag to pay off if he does not get a goal or an assist. Patrick Kane, 7,200. We do know that he is one of the highest volume shooters in the league, which is really surprising to see that he has had totals of 3-3-1-1 against Vegas, where, he had, 5-7 shot goal games against Edmonton. I expect that to come back, and he's playing like 22 to 23 minutes of ice time. He's basically on the ice the entire game. So going down a little bit further for Chicago, you have Kubelak, who's been pretty non-existent in this last 2 games. He had a goal in game 2. DeBrincat is 4,600. His price tag is coming down, but he did have a goal in the last game and had 8 shots on goal in game 3. So I do like DeBrincat for the price tag in that recent form. Saad was on the top line with Patrick Kane and Toews. 4,300 is pretty easy to pay off in that kind of equity, in that opportunity equity he has. So I do like him at 4,300 if you are taking a side with the Blackhawks. Other Blackhawk plays. Oh, I forgot to mention Dylan Dubé for Calgary. He's been just on fire. 3,300 is a great value for him. Drake Kagula got a little quick pass breakaway, scored a goal in the last game. 2,700. People might chase the goal, but he did have an assist in the previous game. Does sometimes find himself on some power play time, but not somebody that I am really targeting. Matthew Highmore, 2,500, scored a goal last game where he shot the puck off Leonard's head, bounced in, kind of a lucky bounce there. Otherwise, at winger, let's go to defenseman. Let's see here. Defenseman here for Chicago and Vegas, Shea Theodore, 6,300, the second most expensive defenseman on the slate, with super high floor, loves to shoot the puck. He's very offensive, definitely in play. Moving down a little bit further, we have Nate Schmidt at 4,700. Also pretty active, shots on goal the last 3 games, 5, 3, 4. Puts a ton of, just is on the ice a ton and plays a lot in the offensive value. Now, Alec Martinez has really come on lately, playing a ton of ice time, but he's had an assist in 3 of the last 4 games. He blocks some of the most shots in that league. Like him and Edler, almost are locked for the block shot bonus every time they're out there. Duncan Keith is seeing a ton of ice time as well. Block shots. He's on the power play. He's 24, 25 minutes on ice time a game. It's really tough to not pay off that price tag at 4,200. Gustafson, I don't really love to play. He is on power play 1, but that's basically all of his value. TJ Brody is viable punt. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Jamie Olisasak with 5 shots on goal last game. I know I saw some high stakes players kind of like ragging him, but he's been pretty consistent the last 4 games, and he's seen a ton of ice time. So for 3,100, he could be a pretty elite value play. Well, Oily Mata had an assist on Kagula's goal, so he's at 3,200. So that's kind of where I'm at. Goalie, I don't know. I don't love to get into goalie. I like to target the volume, but I mean, these are all low scoring games. I think someone like Carter Hart is really nice as a small favorite. If you want to just go by odds, then you play whoever starts Leonard or Fleury, but that seems like a lot of salary to spend on goalie. So any questions in the chat, throw them my way. I'll stand here for another about 5 minutes. Thanks for everybody that has hopped on. We'll probably try to do this a little bit more often. Hopefully it helps you think through your builds and your positions. I post them early sometimes as well, but you can always refer back to this even after this stream is over in order to go back to some of the other games that I did talk about. And some of you guys may be from the chat, so then I'll just, if you throw some questions in there. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys listening. I'll be on the lookout for more DFS content from Fantasy Sports Insight on our YouTube channel. Please give us a subscribe. That is greatly appreciated.